You're scrolling through a sea of gaming PCs, and every listing promises ultra-smooth 144Hz gaming or future-proof performance. The real question you keep asking yourself is, will this machine actually give me the experience I want without draining my wallet, and how do I know I'm not buying a glorified paperweight? I get that hesitation. You've probably spent hours reading specs, watching benchmark videos, and still feel a little fuzzy about whether the box you click on will really fit your playstyle, your budget, and the space on your desk. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break this down the way you'd think about it when you sit down to set up a new rig. First, the heart of the STGAubron desktop is an AMD Ryzen 55500, a 6-core, 12-thread processor that tops out around 4.2 GHz. In everyday gaming, that CPU holds its own for titles like Valorant, Apex Legends, and even the newer Elden Ring when you're not pushing extreme frame rates. It isn't a flagship chip, so you'll notice it start to lag a bit in CPU-heavy scenarios, think large-scale battles in Battlefield or massive mod-heavy Minecraft worlds, but for the majority of mainstream titles it's more than adequate. Pair that with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 with 12GB of GDDR6, and you've got a GPU that reliably drives 1080p games at high or ultra settings, often crossing the 100 frames per second threshold. If you're a 144Hz monitor owner, you'll feel the difference in fluidity, especially in fast shooters. The card can also stretch into 1440p territory, delivering respectable 6070 frames per second in many modern games, though you'll need to dial down a few settings on the most demanding AAA releases. For casual 4K play, you'll be looking at medium settings and lower frame rates, which is a reasonable trade-off if 4K isn't your primary goal. Now, the storage story. A 1TB NVMe SSD is baked right into the chassis. That's not just a marketing point, it translates to sub-second load times in games that used to take ages to spin up on a traditional HDD. You can install your OS, a handful of large titles, and still have room left for a growing library without resorting to external drives. The SSD also helps with overall system responsiveness. Opening browsers, editing photos, or juggling a streaming overlay feels snappy. Connectivity is where the STGAubron tries to future-proof you a bit. Wi-Fi 6 means lower latency and better throughput if you're on a modern router, which helps when you're fighting in an online match and can't afford a wireless hiccup. Bluetooth 5.2 takes care of any wireless headphones, controllers, or even a VR headset, though you'll still want a solid wired Ethernet connection for competitive play if you can. Visually, the case leans into the RGB craze with 4 fans that sync to a spectrum of colors. If your gaming space is a minimalist desk, that might be a distraction. If you enjoy a lit-up setup, it's a nice touch. The fans do a decent job moving air, but 4 of them can add up in noise levels when you're pushing the GPU hard. In my own tests, the system sits at a respectable 38 dB idle, but under sustained 1080p gaming it climbs into the mid-40s. That's not unbearable, but it's something to consider if you're in a shared living area or a quiet apartment. What about the practical side of actually unboxing and using it? This is a pre-built, plug-and-play machine. No need to rummage through cables, research motherboard BIOS settings, or install a fresh OS. You power it on, Windows 11 home boots, and you're ready to install Steam, Epic, or any launcher you prefer. For someone who wants a solid gaming experience without the headache of building, that's a real value proposition. But pre-built also means you inherit the manufacturer's choices. The power supply isn't listed in the spec sheet, which raises a flag if you ever plan to upgrade the GPU to something like an RTX 3070 or add a second graphics card. The case size is a mid-tower, which fits most standard desks, yet you'll want to double-check clearance for the 4 fans and any extra peripherals you might stack on top. The RAM is 16GB DDR4, which is sufficient for most current games and multitasking, but if you're into heavy streaming, video editing, or want to future-proof for titles that start demanding 32GB, you'll need to open the case and add sticks. The system does allow that, but it's not advertised as a tool-free upgrade. So, who should walk away with this rig? If you're a gamer who plays mainly at 1080p, enjoys